Hi everybody, Sarah again. I'm just going to try and talk you through step 6 and onwards because that seems to be the area that everybody's getting stuck on. In order to do this, I've actually taken apart probably one of the first dog heads that I did, so it won't be exactly the same shape as you've maybe got, and obviously because I've unpicked mine, I've got certain areas that have still got dog bits, other bits on that you wouldn't have reached on this stage. But if you just focus on the fact that we're on step 6 and we want to attach the lower jaw to the head. So we've turned the head seam here to be the wrong side out so that you can see the seam that you've made there, and then you position the lower jaw so that the right side is downwards. Okay, so you can see your darts still here, and you find your central position, which you've probably marked and I haven't, and you're just going to pin that in place. I mean, I must be the most unequipped person around here doing this, so you could do this on a sewing machine, but I'm just going to do it by over sewing because you won't see this once it's done. So I'm starting at the center and I'm going to work my way around and outwards. So I'm just over sewing the lower jaw to the is it the flews, the edge of the flews, and my darts are pointing inwards towards the centre front. And you'll see with the piece that I'm working here, this was just a rough one when I was developing the pattern, so you'll find that this doesn't fit. This is much longer than yours should match. You'll get to a point where both the edges match, whereas mine just don't because it's a prototype. When I'm designing something, I literally just cut shapes out, and normally it comes together within the first 2 or 3 goes. It might be a different size. For instance, I think this dog is definitely more of a flora-sized head. Anyway, so I've got to the end of mine, so I've just given it a thorough securing off. So I've done one side, and now I'm going to move around to the other side, and again I'm starting from the centre, and because I always sew from right to left, I've repositioned so that I'm sewing on the outside and round. So I'm literally just slip stitching these 2 raw edges together. It's a little more fiddly on the sewing machine, and you'd take a 1/2 centimetre seam allowance to do that. And again, if you are doing it, I would tend to probably start from the centre and do one side first, and you just keep repositioning the felt so that the edges match. I mean, you don't even really need to worry about the depth of this because you eventually want the this to kind of head upwards and be part of something that's tucked in. So it doesn't matter if you've taken kind of quite deep stitches, really. So I've got to the end and I'm fastening off with that. And then I think the next stage that you would probably do is, I've lost my space on my instructions, hang on. Here comes the dog again. The next thing you do is you're going to turn it through. So remembering that obviously I've unpicked mine in various stages. So you turn it through and you can see that you've got like this jawline, and he's looking a little bit froggy like at the moment, I would say. So flatten out his upper jawline, and you're going to get the nose, which I have unpicked hastily off here, and you're going to position that on so that you've got about 1 centimetre, I think it is, sticking out from the edge, and then you can just sew that in place. I'm just going to use white cotton because that's what I've got on my needle. I've got these ridiculously long doll needles and no pins at the house. Because we've moved everything now into the shop, I've virtually got no sewing kit at home, which is a little bit odd. I expect gradually I'll start building up the things that I need. So I'm just over sewing the nose on. It's quite important to get the nose central, and to be honest, when I was doing little samples and prototypes, just getting the nose slightly off gives you know, a slightly more disappointing look, I suppose. So it's worth putting a centre front line through the main head just so that you can balance everything up. So I'm just roughly over sewing this on so we can move to the next stage. Oops, you won't have a problem with the ears at this stage because you've not got your ears in place yet. So I've got to the point where I've got to the end. I'm just going to fasten that off on the end because your next stage from memory is to sew like a little roll of felt. So I've rolled up a piece of felt into a spiral, tight spiral, and I'm just going to position that into the centre of the nose here, and I'm going to get that fastened on. So it's sitting so that it's kind of tight to the seam line that you've done, and then also so it's sitting parallel, the edge of it to the nose. So I'm just going to try and get that sewn on. Like that. And then I'll skip to the other side. And just invisibly sew this on. Obviously you can take the time to change your threads and make them tonal. And then when I've got that sewn in place, it's like a little padded roll, I suppose. I'll cut that off. And then I'm going to fold the nose back down to the back side of the flues, and I'm just going to sew the corner in place on each side. And felt is so forgiving because it's quite a thick fabric that your stitches will just sink in. So that's one side done. And then I'll do the other side. I miss this multiple threaded needle here. So I'll do the other side. And this isn't the video that I'll do eventually. I'll do a nice video where we can actually see things properly. But I'm just worried that people are struggling and getting frustrated on step 6 and not able to move on. And we don't want that, do we, after all the excitement? So I've sewn that down. So our nose is now got a little padded bit in the middle. We've got 2 secured under corners, and we've got it sewn on the top. The next stage, I'm just going to push that little jaw out, is to pull the nose down on itself. So hopefully you can see that as I'm pulling it down, it's creating like a mid-nose shape, and then we've got 2 nostrils formed. And if you didn't put that little padded bit in there, the nose wouldn't take the form that it is. So I'm just going to open it up to secure myself on the inside. Probably use double thread here. I'm not because I can break the rules. No, I'm not because I'm just rushing. It's coming to the outside and then folding it back down again. And take your time with this because the nose is going to be a critical point. And you just want to go through all the layers, pinch it with your fingers and go through all the layers. And you'll find that this is where, you know, the kind of character starts to form on the creature. And go through the layers of the nose And obviously if you're using double thread, you probably don't need to do it as many times as if you're doing it with single thread. And just keep pulling it in, get some tension on the thread until you feel that it feels right. And to fasten off, I'll probably just head inside again. Now you don't probably need it to be as tight as I've done that one there. You can decide yourself how tight or relaxed you want it to be. I'm just going to snip that there so that we can move on to the next stage. So you can see that I've now got like a dog nose happening there. This probably is a bit nipped in, that one there. And then you can just push the jaw outwards underneath. And the next important thing to do, and you can see that because I've been unpicking, my seams have actually come undone and aren't great. The next thing that I probably need to show you to do is get those bits sewn back up. And then you want to try and get hold of the lower jaw, and you just fold everything back on itself so it sits nice and flat. And that's when then you can just sew through all these points. I really should get this, secured down first. So let me just do this. I'm just going to, poor old boy is going to look really mocked up by the time he's done. But so you will have done this already. This is the point where you've got like a 1/2 centimetre overlap. So that is already done. You've got this little kind of right angle point. And you want to fold the flews back onto the head and then the jaw, the lower jaw back, so that you're creating like a pleat the whole way through. And that's when you can just sew down all of those layers together. And you're probably going to do it from the inside. Remember that my shape here is possibly different to yours because my shape has kind of moved on since I made this one. But this is the point where you're kind of sewing the layers together so that it creates this deep fold here, so that it looks more dog-like. You don't want the jaw to be kind of hanging out. You'll do the same on the other side. The other thing to note is that once you've done the ears and you've put the ears in, my intention was that when everything was done, that you then fold the ears back on themselves so that this stitch line creates like some height and gives a really nice look to the ear. Although obviously if you want a bit of a flyaway ear, that's also possible. So hopefully that clarifies a little bit what's going on with the lower jaw. Okay? And then you'll stuff it and do all that stuff. Thank you.